from the Sixers tonight, 116-93. And just an overall performance from the collective, right? Shorthanded coming in. They shared the basketball, filled up the stat sheet. Everybody who came into this ball game scored. Fingerprints all over the victory here tonight. And there they hold up the one, because they are the number one seeds in the Eastern Conference. Let's go right to our Buick GMC Pro Vision. I want to show you, this is the 8th time in franchise history that the Pistons have secured the number one overall seed. And you talked about this, Greg Kelser, that the fact that they still, with 4 games left to play, have an opportunity to reach that ever-elusive 60-win plateau. But you celebrate in steps, and right now, the Pistons, for the first time since 06-07, reign supreme in the East.
Yeah, congratulations to the guys. Congratulations to them for believing, for continuing to work and going through the various steps that are necessary to get here. We talked about it a few years ago. First, you have to learn how to work hard, and then do it every night. And then finally, you have to learn how to win. Well, they've gone through that third phase of it, and we don't know where this is all going to end this season.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun watching this team as they can continue to grow, build, and believe.
It's been a beautiful ride to this point. 78 games down, 4 to go. Let's take a look at the Eastern Conference standings as they sit here. Only 3 games across the NBA here tonight on Easter Eve. But the Pistons, again, just earlier in the week, able to, to guarantee that they would win the Central Division. And now another notch in the belt to clinch the East. And there's the Boston Celtics, which I know a lot of teams, a lot of people around the league, the Jason Tatum injury notwithstanding, a lot of people thought Celtics were going to be right there, Knicks were right there. But they've been looking up at the Pistons since mid-November.
That's right.
And it's a testament to the job they've done. It's still going to be tight here. The Sixers have now dropped out of the guaranteed playoff spot with the loss here tonight. They've been playing really good. 8 of their last 11 they've won, but now at Toronto they flip-flop. Again, a lot of teams will be fighting here as they look through the 5 through the 10 seed moving forward.
I think the Pistons, if I'm not mistaken, their record was 7-4 when they got to the top spot in the East. 7-4, and they never gave it up. They never gave it up. They fought off all the threats, all the contenders, and they did it, folks, in an amazing way, because how many nights now have they been without Cade Cunningham? How many nights have they been without Duren? How many nights have they been without Tobias Harris? And how many nights have they been without them all at the same time? And they still win basketball games. And that's why I think, Johnny, winning 60, while it's not paramount, it really doesn't even matter now. But I think as they gear themselves and get ready for the playoffs, it's good to keep good habits. They're in the habit of winning. And regardless of who they put out there trying to rest whomever, they're going to play hard. We saw that in OKC. This team only knows how to play one way. So with that in mind, I think 60 is in play. They've got one loss to play with. And if they do that, as I said near the end of the game, no team in NBA history has ever lost 60 games and then 2 seasons later win 60 games. Hasn't happened.
I think that's the special part about it. Obviously, you've been calling Pistons basketball for coming up on 4 decades here. Not to give your age away, because you look great.
I started when I was 7.
But, from a national perspective, when you look at this team, I think a lot of people thought that maybe it's a cute story. It was a nice story when you tripled the win total, last season, because they were, because 14 wins. Not saying it's easy to triple 14 wins, but 14 wins a year prior. They tripled last year, and they had a nice little run in the postseason. And then it was kind of like, are they here to stay? Yeah. And I think the point of, like, you hear about teams talking about learning to play with the target on their back. To your point, from the 11th game on, they have been the hunted in the Eastern Conference. It wasn't like they were trading back and forth or dropping down, coming back up. They've been the class of the East, and this young team, along with some great veteran additions, not only have learned to play with the target on their back, but play well.
It's a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, I never thought they were as bad as their record would have suggested 2 years ago. But I do believe that maybe it was necessary. But by staying together, that was the ultimate test. That was the ultimate test of your character. But they stayed together. There are times when I see them now and the way they comport themselves, be it at shoot-around or on the airplane or on the buses or in the hotel, they were doing the same thing when they won in 14 games. They were that way. So they didn't change. They continued to work hard, though. If they had when the year they won 14 games, if they'd won 30, we've said this before, if they won 30 and then did what they did last year and get to the playoffs and win a couple of games, everybody would have been okay. They're right on schedule.
Yeah.
But because they were never as bad as they were winning only 14 games, they're still right on schedule.
Yeah,
they're right on schedule. The 14 games last year was the next progression, and now we're here.
Yeah, now we're here. It's a beautiful thing. I tried to. I was trying to bait him, but when I asked, because at practice or shoot around, they always say, "What's next? What's next?" Meaning like next pass,
I liked
next
his
play.
answer.
And he said,
I liked his answer.
Orlando, right? Because
mature.
yeah. I mean, and it's not just speak. I mean, that's the thing. Danis Jenkins said it today. He's like, it doesn't. I mentioned this during the game. We're not looking at it as like we've got to go out and go get the 1 seed because it's in front of us. It was. Well, we've been there all year, and so why would we want to drop now? It's almost like it's a natural progression as you climb the rungs, but it's not like, hey, we have to go, solidify this goal. It's just it'll come because we know what the ultimate goal is.
I'll tell you what, if they get, they're going to be in the playoffs, and if they somehow get to the conference finals, they'll be glad they got that number 1 seed.
No question.
Having that home court advantage in a finals scenario, you love it. So they may not fully appreciate it now.
Yeah, we got time.
They will maybe.
We got time. And again, to the point of AT saying, what's next? Orlando is next on Monday, the day after Easter, and JB Bickerstaff has had that consistent message too. We can look ahead just a little bit just for fun to say, like, hey, man, what might it look like? But this team is so good about just kind of 1 foot in front of the other. Let's get to our Xfinity highlights because you highlighted this throughout the game. Even by halftime, all 11 guys who had played in the game had scored. Then by the end of the game, all 5 starters in double figures, the 33 assists. I mean, a collective brand of basketball. That's the recipe, and somehow they were able to dip back into the well and do it again. We call it firing on all cylinders, Special K.
Well, passing the basketball, they've been beautiful with it. Go back to March 10th. They're 4th in the league in assists per game at almost 32 per night, which allows them to shoot a high percentage and which keeps them unpredictable. You don't know if you're the opponent, who to key on. So it puts stress on your defense because really now you got to be solid in every area. And, Duncan Robinson making a cut to the basket, but then ended up throwing a lob to Asar to start this game, and then that was a trend that was able to repeat itself. They're fun to watch. They're unselfish. They trust each other. They're playing basketball as a former Pistons coach, Larry Brown, used to say, playing the right way. They are playing the right way.
The right way. You mentioned Larry Brown. The win over Minnesota on, today is Saturday? It's on Thursday. When they beat Minnesota, that was JB Bickerstaff's 100th win. 3rd fastest behind Flip Saunders and Larry Brown. 2 guys who could absolutely coach.
Yeah.
And that's a testament. We talked about this team and being the same group that, that kind of went through it a couple of seasons ago. We'll hear from JB here in just a second. But when you look at, he's the clear favorite for Coach of the Year. I don't know that a lot of people knew that he could orchestrate what he has orchestrated to this point. Now his 101st win in just 2 seasons on the job.
I don't know if he knew it.
Yeah.
In fact, I would probably say he didn't. Sometimes you're just as surprised as anybody else when things like this occur. I think he knew he had good young players.
Yeah.
He probably felt like it would take a little more time, but things sort of picked up and began to accelerate, and then you raise your expectations. I still don't know that they came in figuring they would be a number 1 seed at the beginning of the season, but they knew they would be much better than last year,
Sure.
And here they are. And they've done it through all kinds of adversity, losing players, having multiple players out. One game had 6 rotation players out, 4 starters. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Chicago Bulls back in, I think, December, and they won that game.
Yeah.
So they've not blinked, and they've stared adversity right in the face and just kept on moving.
All right, let's hear it. I'm going to let you go. I'll see you in Orlando.
All right.
All right, good stuff.
Sounds good.
All right, let's hear from JB Bickerstaff.
Take a moment. Reflect on where we've been, reflect on the work that we've put in to get here, but understanding that this isn't the finish, right? So to grow the way this group has grown together as quickly as it has, it is special. But, we've got more food to eat, so we'll take tonight, enjoy this, but tomorrow we'll get back to work.
First half and second half of this game, just very different vibes. To score 71 in the first half and then turn around and hold Philly to 12 points in the fourth, 33, I think, in the second half. Just what did you like about how they closed this game and turned it up at the end?
I mean, our effort defensively in the second half was phenomenal. The physicality picked up, how active we were, deflecting, getting deflections, blocking shots, being physical, being disruptive. There you go, Tobe. I thought it was a great effort, and everybody, again, contribute.
The level of consistency you guys have been displaying this entire season. This is now you're 12 out of 15 you won. Has it been a series of things with this team to maintain that consistency?
It's how we approach the game. And what our guys have done a great job with throughout this season is staying present and staying in the moment. All we think about is what are we going to do today that's going to make us a better basketball team. We don't think about 10 games. We don't think about March, April. We think about exactly where we are in that moment, and that allows us to stay consistent emotionally and go out and play the game the right way.
Is it also reflective in your scoring balance? You had all 5 your starters in double figures, 2 off the bench in double figures. Is that also reflective in your offensive approach as well?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted diversity in our offense. We want everybody to feel like they're a part of it, everybody to get a touch. The more we move the ball, just factually and the analytics tell us that we're a much better basketball team when we move the basketball. So you move the basketball and everybody's going to get a chance to eat.
To do this without Cade and without Stu, especially with the way things looked, what does that say about the resolve of this team and about, I guess, kind of the way this team can adjust on the fly?
Yeah, no, what I think it says is, we're the definition of team, right? We're not just a bunch of individuals in a locker room. When we play together, because of the way that we defend, we've got enough guys offensively, who can generate offense for us. But we are a team. Obviously, we miss Cade, we miss Stu, we understand their impact. But what you've seen from this group of guys is no one's trying to be someone they're not. They're just trying to be the best version of themselves. And when they do that, everybody collectively ticks up a little bit, and the team is able to still win basketball games.
You're kind of in this spot where now, because you've clinched, you can make decisions on how much you want to play guys, how much you want to rest guys to still keeping them in rhythm. How are you going to approach